Hello, yogi friends, spirit fingers and all. We come to our tutorial on meditation. Hands up if the word meditation has just freaked you out a little bit. I'm actually going to put both hands up and I'm going to get some spirit fingers happening, because when I first wanted to meditate, I was like, there's no fucking way that's going to happen. I can't even sit still for 5 minutes. My brain is so active. I can't even sit still. I can't even move through this class. I need to escape now. It's too hot in this room. I need to get out of here. I'm hungry. What can I drink? All of those things. And you just heard it then. And I'm pretty sure that that was an exact representation of my brain the first time anyone ever suggested that meditation might be a good idea. And it was probably at the end of a yoga practice where someone asked me to sit in silence. And I've gone, well, you can take 2 sips from the cup of F right off right now, because I can't do that. And you know, meditation for a while there got a little bit overwhelming, simply because, you know, we saw in magazines and certainly in the digital landscape, you know, celebrities. I remember reading an article in Vogue magazine, I think it was, about Hugh Jackman, and Hugh Jackman has an 1.5-hour meditation practice a day, and I was like, I can't do that. I can't even say one word, but he's famous. Of course he can do that. Can he? I don't know. I hope he can. I genuinely hope he gets a lot out of that practice, like, because that's freaking amazing. Have I sat in meditation for an hour? Yes, I bloody well have. And it was bloody amazing. And I'm really proud of me for being able to do that. But certainly when I first sat down on the mat, the sensation and not being able to know how to let go of the busyness in the brain, and certainly because I experienced anxiety, panic attacks, depression, ruminating, which are those busy thoughts in the brain that kept swirling around and round that ended up in catastrophic thinking. I didn't know how to switch that off. And so, of course, meditation, and it was a completely overwhelming concept. But it simply doesn't have to be. And I think if we've moved through some of the practices that we've moved through in Breathe, Bend, Sit, Sustain, finding your stillness and your ability to sit in this practice is not as overwhelming as what we first thought it might be. And I think, you know, we've got Buddha as an example, and we've got, you know, the Dalai Lama and Sadhguru and all of these, you know, Ram Dass and all of these extraordinary people who lead us in our meditation practice, and perhaps some gurus and some teachers that you've met. But at the end of the day, I think that meditation is really an individual practice, and I can offer you some guidelines, and so can they, as to how to find your journey to having that experience. But we just don't have to, this is me doing head movements, we don't have to make it as hard as we think it's going to be. And that's about being up in our heads instead of just sitting and finding that peace in our hearts. So I've written a little bit about this in our PDF eBook, or if you've printed that out, your little personal record of this wonderful 4-day exploration that you've been on. Meditation can be tricky and somewhat overwhelming when you first start to sit down and find some personal peace. And so glamorized, as I said, by celebrities, and for many of us, we think we can't do this, and we don't do yoga anyway, and so therefore we can't do meditation. But what we want to do, and remember the context of this, is to create something that's sustainable for you. And this is why we do breathing first, bending, and then we find sitting, because the whole point of our yoga asana practice is to find and to create the ability of our physical body to sit and find a little bit of personal peace. And that's why we do the bending, why we do the breathing, why we do the bending, so we can do the sitting. And we don't have to sit in full lotus position. Like, there is no, I need to get my legs up here and bend myself into a pretzel and hang out here in meditation. That's really hard. I don't want to do that for an hour. I didn't find any personal peace then. But I'm looking around for my yoga blocks. It's actually underneath my laptop here. Ain't no yoga block for me today. But what we want to do is find a way that we can sit in comfort and straighten our spine so that all our chakras are aligned, and we've got prana flowing evenly through our body, so that we can let go of what's happening in the business of the mind. The brain can keep us in this life, and we can find some personal peace. So meditation is the medicine for the stress in our lives. So as I mentioned before, I had stress, anxiety and panic attacks to the point where I would black out. And now I have the tools to enable me to not find myself in that situation and to create some personal peace and some space so that I can find that stillness. So the brain and the mind are different. The brain controls the systems and functions in the body, and the mind are the things that we think. Mind blown, right? Brain keeps us in this life, systems and functions. The mind are the thoughts that we think. These things are separate. We have jurisdiction over what we think and what we don't think. Even after we enter a dialogue, we can, with the brain, we can alter our physical, mental or spiritual state. Amazing. The fastest route to finding stillness is to anchor the mind with the breath. Now, we have talked about this a lot in our breath practice, and we've seen that we can have practices that take us out of that state of busyness and bring us down into a place of calm. We found breath patterns that can elevate our state of being and find us in a more energized place. And we've found breath patterns that bring us into a place of stability and calm. So all of these things are super beautiful, and you can alter how you feel, and it takes roughly about 90 seconds to do that. So knowing that, the fastest way to finding that elusive stillness, we know, is through our breath and anchoring the busyness of our mind with the breath and bringing us into that space of stillness. So in our last meditation that we did, which was a breathing meditation, inhale, arms up, exhale, arms down, we brought ourselves into that stillness. And I talked about 3 things in that space. And, you know, there are said to be sort of 7 steps to finding samadhi, and then there's 7 different kinds of samadhi. Once you get there, you're like, oh my Lord, this is like, what? Bigger than Ben-Hur. Doesn't have to be like that. It can be super simple. So I'm sitting on the ground right now, and if I use my breath, inhale slow, exhale slow, to anchor the mind. Step 1, use the breath to anchor the mind. Step 2 is have that one point of focus simply on the breath, closing down the eyes, imagining the breath coming into the body and out of the body. What this does is we've started to anchor the busy mind with the breath, and we've got that one point of focus, is it creates pratyahara. And that pratyahara is a beautiful Sanskrit word for meaning withdrawal of the senses, essentially letting go of all the external distractions. And that means everything that's happening out there, but also what might be distracting you up here. And that's your pratyahara, letting go, withdrawal of the senses. Now, once we do that, we feel this grounded connection to the earth. We feel this elevation through our chakra system, the crown chakra, the top of the head, reaching up to source, the universe, the sky, the clouds, this place of infinite possibility. But then the breath keeps us grounded and in this present moment. And that's super beautiful. So we've got these 3 parts to that. The Muladhara chakra connecting us to the earth that keeps us in this life. The infinite possibilities of lifting up through the chakra system and finding that connection to source or creativity. And then the breath, again, keeping us in this earthly plane, in this physical life, in this physical body. So it's really, when you break it down, you go, I only need to do 3 things in meditation. I need to connect into the breath. I need to focus on just one thing, that point of contact, that point of breath, that breath coming in and out of the body. And that's going to create pratyahara. And all of a sudden I'm going to be in meditation, and maybe, just maybe, samadhi isn't so far away at all. So you can meditate anywhere, anytime. Remember that ad, yoga? You can yoga anytime at all. You can yoga anywhere. Probably had to be born in the 70s to know that ad. So just ignore my really crappy singing just then. And remember that you can meditate anywhere, anytime. I actually shot a video of Charlie the other day because she is the penultimate meditator. She just plumps herself down on my yoga mat, folds a paw under, shuts down the eyes, and she'll just sit there like a sphinx. I don't even know if it's comfortable, but she's just sitting there. And I know she's not asleep because she's got her head elevated and she's just got her eyes closed, but she's in absolute stillness, and I don't know where she goes, but it was just a really beautiful example of her meditating, and I might include that photo at the end of this tutorial just for you. But you can meditate anywhere, anytime. You don't need a fancy space. You don't need a cone of silence like Maxwell Smart. You can create this space for yourself. Having said that, because all you need is the breath, right, to put you into that space. Having said that, as we come into our meditation, like there are things that are going to make it easier. So like I mentioned before, you don't have to sit in full lotus. I like to sit on a block, and I like to sit in Sukhasana, so my hips are slightly elevated above my knees, and that enables me to find a little bit more length in my spine and sit a little taller. So, you know, that feels good for me. But you can do meditation lying down. You can meditate sitting in a chair. You can meditate sitting in a stool. You can meditate floating on a lilo in your pool. Actually, that's a really great idea. I really need to get myself a new lilo and somebody to blow it up, obviously. So, you know, there are no hard and fast rules about sitting in full lotus position and keeping the hands in a particular mudra so that you can find your inner guru. There's no rules. But the guidelines are connect into the breath. Find that one point of focus. Just allow yourself to withdraw from anything that's happening around you and find a little bit of personal peace. That's it. Sit there for as long as you like, as long as it feels good. And you'll know that there's this one moment when you find that you drop out of wherever it was you were, and you come back and you go, that's when you know. It might only be a split second, but when you have that acknowledgement that you actually just found that peace, that's meditation. When you acknowledge it, you back out again. And that will blow your mind the first time that happens. And then you'll find attachment to that, and you'll want to keep finding that state, and you'll keep repeating that pattern in the hope. And then you have to let go of that attachment because your meditation might be completely different the next time round. And this is all part of the challenge and the busyness of the mind that we need to let go of. And this is where we dive a little deeper into yoga philosophy and philosophy, I guess, that sits behind meditation, where we become attached to the concept or the outcome of meditation, and we need to learn to let go of that. And that is, my friends, an entirely different discussion altogether. Very, very deep one indeed. And one that we need to come together and have that discussion as a group, and some really, really interesting things can come up there. And we call that satsang, and that's a gathering of like-minded souls who want to open a discussion around life, death, and the universe, I guess you could say, often led by a guru or someone who is said to be an enlightened spirit. Now, one last thing before I jump off this tutorial and share that picture of Charlie with you in her meditasi, that I didn't want to do any disruptsy. She just talking about setting up your own personal space. So I do have a space for meditation, and I have a little rug that's set up in front of an altar, and that altar is a really special space for me because it has a tiny little version of the Bhagavad Gita, which is like the smallest little version that I bought in Rishikesh, and that's something that's really super special to me. It also has a glow-in-the-dark Ganesha that was super special to me. So when I look at that and I turn off the lights, it glows in the dark. It's got a collection of shells. It's got some lava that I got from the top of a volcano. What else is on there? It's got some mala beads. And it's got 2 singing bowls, and then it's got some other smaller musical instruments, some shakers and things. So if I'm just feeling like I want to activate that space. It also has some Palo Santo, which is a particular kind of wood. And when you light that wood, and you need to keep holding a lighter under it and blowing on it to keep it alight, has the ability to cleanse that space. And I have used sage there as well. It also has like a little place for me to burn incense. Then I have a cushion that sits in front of that, and sometimes I just use a yoga block or indeed my bolster, and I sit there and I kind of go through a little ritual that sets that up for me in that meditative space, and I really super love that experience. I don't need to sit in that place of meditation every single day in order to find that stillness. So right now I'm in the yogashala where I teach classes, and sometimes after my personal practice, I just find a space on my yoga block and I look out into the garden and I let go of anything that's out there and I connect into the breath, find that one point of focus and find that stillness, come into my own self, let go of those distractions and just be in meditation now. And that takes a little bit of practice. So sometimes it's nice to have that ritual and that little sacred space set up that's just for you. And so that when people see that, oh, Kit Kat's sitting in that space, I won't disrupt her. And that can be a really handy thing if you've got kids or, you know, you live with housemates and you just want to say, look, when you see me sitting here, please don't disrupt me unless it's absolutely a life or death situation, yeah? So having a sacred space can be a really beautiful way to uphold this ritual and take a little bit of a time out for yourself. Also, another beautiful way to practice meditation, and in Bali here we have a regular meditation class on a Wednesdays run by a friend of mine, and that meditation class is by donation, and so that is also a really beautiful way to practice, is going to a collective meditation practice. And there's a beautiful energy that comes about from meditating in a group or finding that collective practice. And the power of one is greater, sorry, the power of two is greater than the power of one. The power of 10 is greater than the power of two, so on and so forth. So there was actually a study done that was instigated by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi in India. And he had the Maharishi ashram in Rishikesh, and that's where the Beatles went to stay. And today there's an amazing art gallery here, there in Rishikesh at the Maharishi Mahesh ashram, and it has all the little domes still in there where people used to live and meditate, and so many people went and lived with him, and he's said to be the instigator of transcendental meditation, practices that were brought back from India to the US with the Beatles and a number of other celebrities that went to stay with him and practice the art of meditation in that space. And I've been to that ashram a number of times, and it's particularly beautiful, eerie in some places, but certainly very, very magical. And it's located right on the Ganga, the Ganges River in India. Up in the Himalayas. Anywho, he actually did a study, and it's called the Maharishi effect, and that looks at the study of the impact of group meditation on the collective or on the greater or the people that are surrounding the greater population. So as people come together in meditation, the frequency and the vibration that's sent out into the world from that group or that collective of meditators impacts the surrounding population. And there's actually been studies done on the Maharishi effect on prisoners in jail, where they've created collective practice for prisoners, and they've seen the impact of that collective practice on the whole of the prison system that weren't actually participants in that practice. And they've done it on a city in America, and I apologise for not remembering the city offhand right now, but where they had 2% of the population of that particular town or city engaging in a meditation, and it actually impacted the rest of the collective of that town or that city, and it reduced crime and overall anxiety within that population. So meditation does have an amazing impact on the world. And another friend of mine here, you can look him up on Instagram, Meditation Dave. He actually runs Vipassana meditations here in Bali, and it's his goal and the goal of his business to grow the global meditation movement. So not just having people just randomly meditating, but having us all as a collective doing the largest group meditation in the world, and hoping that the vibrations that we send out from us as a collective from all around the world, and the power that we harness as people meditating in that collective spreads out, and goes out into the greater universe, creating a happier, healthier, more connected world in which we live. And we all know that we could use a little bit more connectivity right about now. The Funk Soul Brothers, check it out now. And that brings me to the conclusion of this meditation guideline and tutorial. What you will find coming up next is a guided meditation for abundance and creativity. I love this meditation. It's really beautiful. I hope that you enjoy it. The key to finding a good guided meditation is make sure that you like the person's voice that you're listening to. If you're halfway through it and you're thinking about how sucky that voice is, that meditation is not going to work for you. Another great tip is to use binaural beats. So get yourself some headphones. I like external ones, but earbuds will work just as well. If you're listening straight off your phone, you won't get the same effects from binaural beats, and there are some particularly beautiful meditation journeys that you can go on guided, or you can just use binaural beats on their own and use those 3 techniques or some of the techniques that you've learned throughout this course to guide you as well. Thirdly, you can join Insight Timer and a whole raft of other different meditation guidance tools or apps through iTunes or through Google Markets, and find your way into learning through meditation and creating little rituals and habits through that. I actually don't care how you get there. There are so many different pathways to travel along and experience to guide you into meditation, as long as you are challenging things, finding out what works for you and learning your way through what works for you and coming to a place of stillness and finding your way to meditation. That is what is important. And so many different people have these different ways of guiding you into that space. And exploring and finding out those systems and processes that works for you is what it's all about. So, my yogi friends, without further ado, I will leave you to your meditation practice, and I hope you enjoy this guided meditation for creativity and abundance. Namaste, my yogi friends.